Welcome back. Double Saints coming to Baltimore this week. This guy has promised to bring some gumbo up here as well as some New Orleans revelry. He is one of our frequent contributors anytime the Ravens Saints get together, anytime we need anything down in the Crescent City. He is the Sports Hangover host at ESPN New Orleans. You can find him out changing diapers, LSU, Tulane, Saints, Pelicans, any of that stuff. You can find him at GCat_17 down in New Orleans. We welcome Gus Kattengell back onto the program for all things Saints and Ravens. It's a pretty good football game. I mean, I sat around Nashville watching good football games on Sunday night and Monday night, but this is sort of cross-conference. Teams don't get together often, and the matchup of Saints offense and Ravens defense is kind of delicious, right?
It is. You know, it's crazy, too, because when you look at this division and you look at the Ravens, there's storylines all over the place, right? I mean, if you look at the success since Drew Brees has been here with Sean Payton, they've been successful. Except against this division, it's always tough. And Baltimore is the only team Drew Brees and Sean Payton haven't beaten. Well, Drew Brees has, right? Since he's been quarterbacking for the Saints, really in his professional career.
Everyone's brought that up. Like everyone in the city of New Orleans is aware of this Breeze, Ravens, kryptonite, purple. I mean, they play 3 times. I mean, that's the nature of the league. We play the Redskins. They're 38 miles away, and we never see them either. And I can't name 10 players on their team because I don't. They might as well be in Seattle for me. But it really is kind of an amazing thing that Breeze is still doing this for the 4th time, right? Literally.
It is. It's incredible when you think about it from 2006 to now. And, it's one of the things as well that we kind of still remember, the Super Bowl season, right? It seems like it was last year. Dude, his kid's like 10. I mean, it's all. I mean, the kid that he held up there with the earmuffs and everything. I mean, it's crazy to think that was, the 2010 season, and man, he's almost as old as he is right now, and he's got just half of a football team going. So it's just crazy when you think about it from that perspective. But while they haven't played very much, you remember those games, and I just remember that defensive laden, for some reason, the Saints offense can't work against this division. I just remember those games like that. And look, that Cincinnati game on the road in a couple of weeks, scares me just as much as this one, too, because it's so easy, man, to look at next Sunday night, at Minnesota, their revenge game, the game that I think is so key in this next quarter of games for the New Orleans Saints. And the Rams game, it's juicy, right? You're like, hey, could they be undefeated? Could the Saints be... Dude,
I looked at the Saints' schedule, and I mean, we're coming off an ass-beating in Cleveland last week, right? And 11 sacks and all this wonderful stuff that happened in Nashville. But I look at the Saints' schedule. It's unbelievable how difficult this stretch is about to become for them and how sort of bunched up your division is in the same way our division where, you don't really take Tampa all that seriously, but you might. You don't really take Cleveland all that seriously, but you don't want to play them. But Ravens, Vikings, Rams, Bengals, Eagles, Falcons. This is not a good month for you guys after an early bye, right?
Right. No, exactly, and that's what you look at, and so you try to break it down sort of like they do, and you look at it in quarters and just try to win the quarters, right? I mean, they went 3-1 in that first quarter. That was awesome, and I had them going 4-1 into the bye. I had the loss at Atlanta. No one could have predicted the losses that they had on defense, but they can still score.
Well, they almost lost in Atlanta. Magic. They tried to lose in Atlanta.
Right. No, believe me, they couldn't cover anybody in Atlanta. That's the thing that still kind of scares me, too, because, dude, people call me Bubbles the monkey, the monkey that Michael Jackson, because basically anybody, a monkey could have covered training camp, essentially, was what everyone was saying, because I swore that the linebackers were going to be the Dome Patrol 2.0, the strength of the team would be the secondary, and I couldn't have been more wrong to start the season. So I think when you look at this stretch and you just look at the importance, man, this Baltimore game, I keep telling people on our show, you have to take care of business against Baltimore. You got to go win there because I could easily argue 3 straight losses, right? I mean, that game in Minnesota is not going to be easy. They got a good defense. And then you look at the Rams, and that's a team that's playing spectacular football right now. So as good as you're feeling at 4-1, you don't win Sunday, man, You know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe it's just a pessimist in me, but Sunday's important to me.
Well, and Gus Kattengell joining us here from New Orleans, covering all things Saints. Yeah, I have positioned this a little bit this week as two survivors in Harbaugh and Payton who have climbed the mountain, won big games, lost big games, been accused of all. Harbaugh's given fines every offseason about doing something, and Payton's always going to have the stickiness of Bountygate to him, no matter what happens. And they still have something to prove. They've made a lot of money. They could go work on television or go off to the farm or do whatever, go get a tan, do whatever they want to do. They also would be employed tomorrow morning if they didn't want to be there anymore. And there have been some mornings where you thought Payton might not be the coach on Monday anymore, much like Marvin Lewis surviving or Mike Tomlin surviving or Belichick or McCarthy or any of these other, Pete Carroll, these guys have been around. But these are two survivor guys that have been linked to their quarterbacks, linked to their cities, linked to big times and bad times, and also to some 7-9 and some you didn't make the playoffs this year. Yeah. I mean, they have survived the fire, and now both have good teams again all of a sudden, right?
It's incredible you point that out because during that 7-9 stretch, right, for starters, no one's firing Sean Payton here, right? I mean, he's as close to I would call like Nick Saban or a college coach as I can think of, man, to be honest with you. I guess Marvin Lewis might be a close second when I look at it, but he's got supreme power here. I mean, I know Mickey Loomis is the GM, but trust me, what Sean says goes. I mean, from the gum that's put in the practice facility to the messages that are posted and put on the locker room, Sean Payton runs everything here. And, Mickey Loomis is not going to tell Sean no, essentially. I mean, if anything, I think that's why Jeff Ireland has been such a welcome piece because I think sometimes in some of those drafts, they needed somebody to say no. Jeff Ireland said the first draft that he was here, Sean and Mickey wanted to trade everybody for everybody, move up, and they're like, whoa, settle down. So that explains a lot of those 7-9 seasons, man. Bad drafts, right? I mean, you have literally 2 entire drafts where there's nobody on this football team, and that's hard to win when that happens. So that's incredible when you look at it from that standpoint. But he's got power. He's got power here, and obviously the passing of Tom Benson, you would think, okay, what's the future? But, Gail Benson's around, and they're as close a relationship as you can imagine between the owner and coach. And, man, I've even joked, hey, I could see him eventually becoming the general manager or, I don't know, maybe even ownership at some point. That's how close they are here. So he's got a ton of power. He's absolutely tied to Breeze in terms of coaching. But with this draft classes, the last 2 years, not counting this one, but I think there's a rejuvenation and there's a young football team that's kind of, established itself to a point where you think, hey, they could maybe be a playoff team the next couple of years. So you see he's hungry. You see he still wants to coach and do all of that. But he can stay here as long as he wants, dude. Those 7-9 seasons when all those reports came, he was going to coach here, was going to coach there and all that, it didn't come from New Orleans. It didn't come from GM, Mickey Loomis, all that. That's Sean's people trying to stir the pot, trying to make sure that he's appreciated, stuff like that. But
make sure now that Gruden gets $10 million, he gets 11, right?
Yeah, like I said, if he's here as long as he wants to, and I'm sure he could probably go. Hey, for a while, dude, he was the highest paid head coach in the NFL. And he wasn't going into the playoffs, so that ought to tell you.
He is Gus Kattengell. He is down in New Orleans. He can be followed out on Twitter at GCat_17. He's also fathering right now, which is more fun. So I'm going to read some ads, tell everybody about our great sponsors here. The Lee Tessier team, Baltimore's premier realty team, and the folks that I trust with my real estate transactions with over 50 years of experience. And I go back with Lee and Dundalk and Leukemia and Man of the Year. Good man. Go to LeeTessier.com to learn more about why we selected them to represent us. Also, Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. The 99-cent coffee going on right now, piping hot with Justin Tucker. Make sure you pick that up. At some point, they're going to let me wear the chicken suit now that I'm in my 50s. I keep telling them, if Tucker could wear it, we're not the same, Bill, but we're close enough that I could get into the suit. Not into the Nada suit, but I think I could get into Justin Tucker's suit. So give us some love at Royal Farms, and make sure that you're checking out the Rofo Rewards card as well as the app. When you're pumping your gas, you get your fried chicken and your Western fries free. And we all know the only thing that can make Rofo tofu chicken and Western fries taste better when they're free, right? Absolutely. Also, the Maryland Jockey Club doing the Maryland Million this week. I want to get everybody down there on Saturday into the beautifully revamped sports bar down there. If you haven't been down there lately, check it out. It's a little Vegas-y. It's nice down in Laurel these days. And the Maryland Million running this week. We're going to check in with Stan Salter from Maryland Horse Radio as well. We're checking in right now with Gus Kattengell. He is one of our pals down in New Orleans. And, of course, the host of the Sports Hangover. A little bit of a hangover when you have a bye week, right? I mean, you're watching everybody else play. We got our bye coming up sort of right in the middle of the season, which is nice. But an early bye may have slowed them down a little bit. And more than anything, the defense needs to pick it up there. I mean, it's nice that Drew can throw it around for 27, 28, 31 every week. But until the defense stops bleeding, you got a problem. What's the hope there for the Saints defense? What's the top end for them?
Man, it's crazy. With that offense, if you can just be in the 20s, the team can win. I know Marshawn Lattimore at the beginning of the season was talking top 10. He wanted to be top 5. After those first couple of games, he wanted him to be in the 20s. You know what I'm saying? They were terrible. I mean, think of this, right? It's funny how the NFL works. I mentioned the Falcons. They lost 2 games on literally the last play of the game. It's not they'd have more than the wins they have now. Saints being one of those. Cleveland, you can kind of say that too. I mean, they had the Saints beat. Tampa beat the Saints. Atlanta had the Saints beat, essentially, if Drew Brees doesn't have what I think was one of his top 5 performances as a New Orleans Saints in that game in Atlanta. They could have been 0-3, man. And we're here 4-1. So it is that fine line. I'm sure you guys have heard, Harbaugh and Flacco talk. It is. It's a fine line. And it's, you don't apologize. You got to find a way to win. And sometimes it's pretty, sort of like it was against Washington, a couple of weeks ago, and sometimes it's ugly, like it was against Cleveland, where, hey, he missed a couple of PATs and he missed a couple of field goals. If not, that's a loss. So it is crazy when you look at it from that standpoint, but the defense has to pick up. In that secondary, that's what I was getting at. That's the thing that's more remarkable. I thought it'd be the strength, but you lose Patrick Robinson, a season-ending injury. That's going to be tough to kind of overcome. Ken Crawley hasn't really played very well, the corner opposite of Marshawn Lattimore. And, the thing that's really incredible to me is they're the number 1 team against the rush right now. And thank gosh, because if they wouldn't be, they'd really be in trouble. So that, to me, is the key, man, coming into Sunday's game. I think if they can kind of continue that trend of keeping the last 3 opponents under 100 yards, the Saints can go a long way to being a lot better on the defensive end.
Here's Gus Kattengell. He's down in New Orleans watching the Saints do all the things they do, and he's done it for a number of years. You mentioned the Benson family, and that was a sort of sleazy, out in the open, sort of crazy family thing that everyone participated in some sort of reality TV. Just the fact that has settled down. Hey, we might be going through that soon around here with the Orioles, right? So after 115 losses and Buck and Duquette out the side door, so that's never pretty, but it was particularly ugly down there. And just the fact that has settled down and the same dudes are running the place, it at least sort of tamps down anything that could happen in the aftermath of that. Winning football games with the base of the Loomises and the Paytons and the Breezes, even Ben Watson coming back. It's there's some familiarity there, and that story's over with now, and they get onto the field, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Obviously, and look, I mean, don't forget they own the Pelicans, and obviously, I don't have to tell you if you follow the NBA, and I wish we could be talking about the start of the NBA season here in New Orleans better than where is he going? I mean, everybody has AD out of here already, and, the franchise is dead. They're moving. I'm like, look, I can tell you one thing, and money is money, status is status, right? You think Dale Benson doesn't mind being in the Forbes, most richest people list of the United States.
And listed as the most powerful in that,
right,
the NBA is the NFL's over in Wembley this weekend trying to figure it out and figuring it out. I mean, I went over last year. I saw it with my own eyes. It's real, but the NBA's been real for 25 years in that way.
Boom. Exactly.
There's a lot of juice that she's carrying around right now that.
Thank you. Yeah. Right. And being a female owner, right? I mean, How many female owners you have that kind of power and say, and more importantly, money and clout. Look, I mean, she's not, nearly as old as Tom Benson was the last couple of years, I think. So you could definitely see her, still have that kind of, again, and that's what I'm getting at. that's why I get frustrated when they're like, oh, they're going to trade him. Like, who? Why? What business person? You got to think of it from a business standpoint. Why would someone trade their best asset to get people in seats and to have any marketing and have any visibility whatsoever? 13 nationally televised games for the Pelicans this year, more than any. Why? It's because of Anthony Davis. They're not going to just throw him away and get rid of him, right? So it's the same thing with the Saints. Look, I mean, they're beloved here. Without the Saints, you don't get Super Bowls. Without the Saints and the Pels here, I don't think you get NBA, all-star games. You don't get national championship games now. You know the game when it comes to hosting all these events now. I mean, you see it at Jerry World in college football. You have top games in college that are, sourced out to start the season.
Bro,
now,
I didn't spend 10 days freezing my ass off in Minnesota back in February because it was my selection. That was selected by the Minnesota government, Ziggy and Roger, right? I mean, that's the reason we were all there.
Right, exactly.
Here's Gus Kattengell. He's down in New Orleans. You can follow him out on Twitter as well as at ESPN and The Hangover down in New Orleans at GCat_17. But go ahead, you had some more to say about the Benson thing because there was nothing uglier than the way that thing played out at the end. Right,
and that's what I'm going to tell you is that the way it's been set up, man, and it wasn't an unexpected thing, his passing. So it's set up to where there's a chairman of the board, there's a board. Like I said, his most trusted people are still running that organization, whether it's Lauscher, Greg Bensel. Like I said, Loomis is involved in there. Trust me, there's no doubt Peyton has some power in there as well. So all of that in mind, there's stability, I guess, is what I'm trying to get you at. That while Tom Benson's not around, Gail's there, and look, she trusts whatever Loomis and some of the other people tell her. So, they're her right and left hand people, and so when you got that kind of power, that's what I mean. You're not going anywhere,
All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Buffalo Wild Wings in Bel Air. I want to give them a shout-out because we got playoff baseball going on, college football all day Saturday. The local place to gather. My man Joe's up there waiting with delicious wings and sandwiches and fries and ice-cold beverages and all of the games on. They actually know how to work the TVs there. It's a wonderful thing. Buffalo Wild Wings in Bel Air, one of our favorite stops. I want to give them some shout-out love as well. Last thing for you, Gus, we're running around with Willie Snead here, and I know there's been a lot of tales in the big city. I know this. We don't have wide receivers like Michael Thomas around here, Ozzy's been looking 23 years now for that sort of thing, while Perryman's running around with the Browns here this week. He's the real deal, and it makes guys like Snead sort of expendable, if not disposable. Some thoughts about the departure of Willie Snead? He's been a nice football player. He was a National Football League wide receiver, man.
Yeah, no, look, I'll tell you what. It's crazy, but it is. It was a compliment that people here compared him and thought that he was the next Lance Moore. I mean, Lance Moore worked his way to being a receiver, right? Special teamer. He got in a couple of packages, and next thing you know, look, I'll tell you this, the first 2 years that Willie Snead was here, the reason he got on the field, he was the third down conversion guy. He was the go-to guy for Drew Brees. If it was third and whatever, chances are when the reception took place, it was probably Willie Snead with the catch.
Well, we've seen that through 6 weeks. He gets tough yards. He's fearless. There's no doubt about that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The guy, there's a role for a guy like that, I think, in many offenses. And, I just think it's when you look at trying to take that next step and trying to look at these corners and what they have here, there's definitely a type that Sean Payton's fallen in love with, right? Every receiver, for the most part, even in training camp, Traquan Smith's the latest one. It's 6'2", 6'3", and these guys are big, strong. They want to be able to block as well. And I think, quite honestly, if certain things don't go the way they did with Willie Snead in the offseason, and I still think it was very strange last year how, he never recovered, quote unquote, from an injury and all of that from the offseason mishap that he had. I don't know how much effect that did or not, but it was never a question if the guy could play football or not. And look, I'm glad he's doing it. That's why I asked you before we even started. I want to make sure that, I think the guy is a good guy. I think he can play, and I think he's, people like him here, man, a ton.
Kamara, anything there you want to say about him and how special that is? I mean, again, we look from afar. When we had it all together, when I think of what Ray Rice could do, and I know that, everything that happened in Atlantic City inside now, quite frankly, know too much about it. Having that sort of a weapon who can also protect your quarterback a little bit, it shaves, it adds years to Drew Brees. It certainly shaves off the responsibilities he's going to need to have in regard to running the football. And I know Ingram helps that as well.
Man, I'll be honest with you. I said at the beginning of the season it wasn't popular. I got laughed at a little. I actually think Alvin Kamara is an MVP candidate. Before it's all said and done in his career.
Well, you talk with Le'Veon Bell does. I mean, if he were in Pittsburgh right now, he'd be worth $14 million. He would be.
Absolutely. Look, I'm just saying. Okay, so Ingram's not available for the first 4 games, and you saw what the guy can do. I mean, he does 3 touchdown games like it's nothing, and I like you mentioned, adding years to Drew Brees, I don't have to do anything but dump off a pass to him or hand it off or give him a toss. I can line him up in the slot. No one's covering him, and the guy makes, a kickoff return or a 60-yard run. I mean, you saw it against the Giants a couple weeks ago. It's effortless. He looks like he's jogging, and he's only going to get better. And he told us he got faster, he thought, and stronger in the offseason from a year ago. He said last year he was just trying to make sure he knew where he had to go on the play, and now he understands the offense and his role a little bit better. He works with receivers on how they try to get free on defensive backs for when he lines up to catch passes. He's just always trying to get better and learn. So I think the cerebral part is just as amazing as the physical attribute. But Sean Payton last training camp, not this past one, but his rookie season, said something and got everybody going, oh boy, this guy's been out in the heat a little too long. He compared him to Marshall Faulk from the cerebral standpoint. He said that was the thing that he remembered of Marshall Faulk, that we all saw what he could do on the football field talent-wise. The guy understood the game better than a lot of people did. And that's what he was comparing to. He said that workout they had at Tennessee, he was just absolutely floored. He never thought they'd be able to get him. That's why they traded, the pick that they did to go jump and go get him. So I honestly think before it's all said and done, I mean, look, right now the talk around here is what does Drew Brees have to do to get an MVP, much less even be mentioned on ESPN, earlier this week after Rodgers did a comeback, and I saw the story earlier in the week of, hey, what quarterback do you want in the fourth quarter when the game is on the line? And it's Brady, Rodgers, and Roethlisberger, and everyone here went up in arms like, what does Brees have to do to get the respect? So, but I think with Kamara, man, he has something that maybe Brees doesn't kind of have, that edge, right? I mean, he's a marketing doll for me, man. I could have him market anything. He's got a great sense of humor. He chose to live downtown amongst the fans in the city. He walks home from games and stuff because he lives right down the street from the Dome. He wants to be a part of the community and entrench him. You can go, he'll have breakfast, on weekends or weekdays where normal people do or tourists do downtown. So I think from that standpoint, that's what's remarkable, is that he can just be a normal person like that. But man, I like I said, to me, he has an MVP quality above him, I think, before it's all said and done.
I want to be a tourist in New Orleans for a couple of days, come down there, eat my face off with you guys.
Yes.
I mean, it sucks. We only get you every 8 years, and every time the Saints show up, people on the New Orleans trip say, or the Nashville trip this week, when are we playing in New Orleans again? And I'm like, hopefully the next time the Super Bowl's down there. We think the Super Bowl should be there every year. We've had good spirits down there.
Well, I tell you what, man, it's fun. Obviously, last time you guys were here, you pulled out that win. So I just know from covering when the Saints were in Miami, and it took 45 minutes to an hour to get to where the team facility was, to the practice, to where the media. I mean, that's the one thing I do like. Every Friday we do a show at Deuce McAllister's Old Saint Kitchen and Tap, where they have 52, taps of microbrew. I mean, it's just that's the quarter, man. So
and he a rebel too, so I like that.
Exactly.
Right.
No, it's great. You can get lost downtown, and have fun. So.
Oh, man, one day, every 8 years it happens to me, for better or worse. And I think of those images of me stumbling down Bourbon Street with Mike North back in 1996, how crazy life was when I was a younger man. Closest I ever came to not getting a show done due to off-the-field circumstances of aftermath illness. Happened to me one night involving cheap beer and, and unmentionables. So, I mean, you're the sports hangover. I know all about New Orleans.
For a reason.
Now that I'm an old guy, I turned 50 this week, I can tell all those stories about my 20s, and they just sound endearing, not what they were, which was foolish.
Here's the problem. I'm 42. I still think I'm in my 20s sometimes when I try to do that. And I remind myself the next couple of mornings afterwards, I'm like, yeah, you're definitely not in the 20s. But, yeah, it's the temptation every single day, man, when you're down here. It is fun, though.
The cake and the jambalaya and the gumbo will travel. Just nothing fried. We'll fry that up here. Be good, man. We'll see you soon. Gus, always a pleasure, man.
Sounds good, man. Thank you for having me.
You got it. Gus Kattengell joining us here from Nollins, as they say. Dad, husband, host of the Sports Hangover at ESPN in New Orleans. You can find him at GCAT, K-A-T-T, _17. Gus Kattengell, one of our friends from down in New Orleans. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Strategic Factory. Yeah, they print hats like this and shirts like this and also signs, but they also help you market your business. If you need a full marketing strategy, learn more about what they do. You'll see them at the Raven games this week, as well as at strategicfactory.com. We'll be telling you more, as well as at the Modell Lyric, where Kansas is coming in a couple of weeks. We got a bunch of great shows. Joe Bonamassa coming up down there. The Beach Boys are doing their Christmas act on December 2nd, as well as John Mellencamp. There's always magic at the Modell Lyric. I made some magic with Steely Dan last week. That was a big night out with the master Donald Fagen down there. What a beautiful world it would be. Little FM, little Hey 19. I didn't get Babylon Sisters, which I'm going to have to talk to Donald Fagen about that. But big night at the Modell Lyric. There's always magic at Modell-Lyric.com. Also, Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Make sure you're working on the ROFO Rewards plan, whether it's the card or the app. You download that. When you're pumping your gas, you get your points. You'll wind up with your Western fries and your fried chicken free. And, hey, the coffee's 99 cents right now. And always brewed fresh. Kona Blend. Try it out. Justin Tucker says so. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.